Hi, folks, and welcome to episode 4 of Couriers and Coffee. Today, I'm absolutely delighted to welcome Anthony West. Anthony is an enterprise advisor with me, so he volunteers his time to support schools in Ipswich, and his day job is a financial advisor for Matthew Douglas. So we're going to get an insight into the world of work today, the financial sector, and also his own pathway in terms of how he got that job, and learn a little bit more about him. So I'm going to bring in Anthony to talk a little bit more about what he does. How are you, sir?
Yeah, very good. How are you?
You know, living every day, loving it. It's a bit of an odd world, but yeah, I think sort of getting by. How about yourself? Is it all okay?
Yeah, good. Work's carrying on kind of as normal, just in a different venue, really, for me, working from home. But it's been quite good because I had a bit of a better work-life balance recently, which is nice.
That's all right then. I was going to say, and I've already seen sort of the tour of the little man cave set up, so I'm liking it so far. But sort of, how are you coping with working from home? Have you got any sort of tips to be productive and sort of, because I feel like I'm spending most of the day just snacking in the fridge sometimes. What's some of your top tips to stay productive whilst you're home?
Like I said, you've sort of mentioned the man cave. I mean, I do have a luxury in the fact that I can walk out my back door, close it behind me, come down for a separate set of doors, lock them behind me if I need to, and have a separate environment where I'm doing work. And thankfully, my family understand that when I'm down here, I'm doing work. It's like being at the office, which that does help to compartmentalize things. And so then at the end of the day, when I go back into the house, it's like coming in from work normally. And so I'm dad and a husband again.
I was going to say, less of a commute, so that's not too bad, is it?
Yeah. My sort of diesel bill has gone through, dropped through the floor, which is great. It's kind of handy.
You're saving the planet, really, so it's all good. Look, let's have a chat. Let's talk a little bit more about what you do. So why don't you tell us a little bit more about your current role, and then we'll talk a little bit more about sort of school, your pathway after that, skills. But yeah, tell us what you do.
Yeah, so I'm a financial advisor for Matthew Douglas Limited. We're independent financial advisors based in Hadley in Suffolk, and essentially I tell people what to do with their money in the most simplest terms. But obviously it gets a bit more complicated than that. People will come to us with plans for the future. So when they want to retire, if there's something in particular they're saving up for, and we help them to save up their disposable income if they've got any, in the most efficient manner. We help them invest that money where it's right, and by investing they can then generate sort of better returns to hopefully get that objective achieved when they want to.
I think that sounds brilliant. And I think a lot of people probably think that you've got to be sort of a gazillionaire to invest and all of those sorts of things. Is that sort of still the case, or can you just your normal job and you go to you and you say, okay, I want to do this, this, and this is how I want to plan for my future? Is that something you do as well?
Yeah. So you don't need to be a billionaire or anything like that to invest. A lot of the lovely thing about investments nowadays is that they're very transparent, and it does mean that you can invest from as little as in some cases the more modern apps, you can invest sort of a few quid out of spare income. There's a few really good apps that are out there, and they'll shave off a bit of the sort of pennies from each transaction and put that to one side for you. So you can do it that way, which is a starting block. But even with some of the more mainstream investments that we get involved in, you can invest from as little as £50 a month into a stock market or whatever it is. So yeah, it's the world of investing is open to a lot of people. We do tend to get involved with people that have accumulated a bit more of their wealth, because that then just gives us a bit more to work with. But yeah, there's certainly lots of things out there, and you don't need to be an expert to do it. The lovely thing with financial services and the regulations that are involved mean that you can go to an individual like myself or a company, and you can say, look, this is what I want to achieve. How do I do it? And they'll signpost you in the right way, which is brilliant. You don't have to be a genius. You don't have to be a billionaire. Anyone can do it.
No, that sounds brilliant. And also, so do you have some people who invest in Bitcoin? I'm still working out what that actually is, because it's sort of taken over the world. It's a bit like Marmite. You either get it or you don't.
Yeah, definitely. I half get it, half don't. I personally don't invest into Bitcoin. We don't have it as part of our standard investments for clients, but I do have some clients that have gone and invested themselves directly, and some people have done well, some people haven't. It's it's an interesting area, definitely, and it's very, very new. And with that, there's not a lot of past performance you can look at. It's harder to understand the risks. So bit of an odd one, that one.
Maybe like one to watch for the future. I want to sort of rewind a little bit. So, what did you do at college, and did you pursue university to get where you are? What was your next steps after school? What did you do?
Yeah, so I'm 34 this year, so you didn't have to stay in school until you're 18 like you do now. I did my GCSEs, and my parents were quite vocal about you carry on, get some further qualifications, just so that gives you something more to work off in the future. And so I did my A-levels, geography, sociology, and business studies, and they're quite a broad range, really. I didn't really know what I wanted to do as a living when I was at school, so I didn't go to uni. I was scared that if I went to uni, it would commit a lot of time and a lot of money to maybe not actually give me the outcome that eventually I wanted. So I went straight to work, and I worked at HSBC on the tills in Ipswich, and that was kind of it was a great place to start. And little did I know at the time I'd sort of fallen into financial services, and it definitely got its grip on me. But the lovely thing with financial services is that yes, you can go to uni and do your degrees and bits and pieces, and still get into financial services. But if you don't go to uni, there's plenty of courses that you can do on like an apprenticeship basis, and lots of firms out there are quite supportive of a range of people, whether or not they've gone to uni or not, to sort of help people get in these courses and learn what you need to know to do the job.
That sounds brilliant. And in terms of your firm currently, are you one of those firms who are sort of encouraging apprenticeships and I suppose more young people joining your firm? Because I remember we've had a conversation previously where you'll be then looking at, okay, well, who's going to be the next leadership team to be able to sort of pass the mantle on to? So is that something your firm's encouraging as well? Yeah,
definitely. I mean, we've just taken on 2 guys that are sort of trainee advisors. They happen to go to uni. That wasn't the reason we took them on. And so they are going through diplomas in financial advice. There's additional qualifications that hopefully they'll go on to afterwards to build up their knowledge, ready for when they deal with clients. But yeah, from our point of view, we know as a business that we need a younger generation to come in, because it's quite an aging population in financial services, and so there's plenty of opportunity for young people to come in and get a foothold in what is an exciting industry.
I hope you're not putting yourself in the aging population bracket at 34. I will be concerned. So for you, what's the best bit about your job?
I'd definitely say meeting with clients and just having good, honest conversations. You get to see such a variety of people with such different needs. I've dealt with clients that haven't got much money at all, through to the opposite end of the scale, where they've got more than enough money, and actually they need careful planning to make sure that that it's managed efficiently for them, really. And that's great, because you get to deal with so many different people. No 2 days are the same, it makes it exciting.
That sounds brilliant. And I suppose for any young people and students who are considering this as a pathway, what's some of your top tips for them to be able to do this?
I'd certainly say, when you've finished, or even while you're at education, it's not a bad thing to explore some online information about investing. What does it mean? There's lots of videos on YouTube. There's lots of bits from different asset managers that will tell you about how to invest, principles of successful investing as well. I'd then probably say that it's actually worth getting in touch with local firms, companies that are local to you. Ask if they've got any work experience places, or even if they need any help. We quite often need help with scanning in files, shredding files, stuff like that. It's a bit mundane, but it's a great way to actually kind of get a foot in the door and actually see kind of how the working environment is. But yeah, that's it's certainly worth just getting in touch with firms. I think, when I was younger, I'd always think, oh Christ, these people aren't going to want to talk to me, I'm just some silly kid. But it's not that at all. And actually, I think a lot of companies are very much got an open door policy to young people coming in and trying to learn the ropes.
No, that sounds brilliant. And I suppose, folks, you've heard it here first. Matthew Douglas is waiting for your application.
Yeah.
On the theme of young people, what do you think are some of the skills that they really need to thrive in the financial sector?
Yeah, so I think the first and foremost is having honesty. You can come into this industry thinking, right, it's all about the big bucks and, dressing in fancy suits, getting a train down to London, and all these, fancy cars and all this sorts of stuff. The reality is that, it's a very different world to that. A lot of the time it's, you're just talking with people in their living rooms, drinking a cup of tea and they're having a conversation. So I think just being honest with people, being true to who you are, that means that people then build a rapport with you. They open up more to you, and actually you find out really what they want to achieve and actually what their fears are as well, because you need to know what they're scared of to make sure that you can manage their money appropriately. But yeah,
I think honesty, I think that's something that I think people need. Blimey, every single sector, and I think that's often what sets you apart from other people as well. Also, just sort of going back to your own career, what's been some of the highs and lows for you?
Definitely a high has been being promoted to director of Matthew Douglas. So I joined the company when there was literally 4 of us in a small office. So I've been fortunate to see it grow over the years. And as part of that, at a certain stage, the other directors said, right, you can kind of come in and be part of this inner circle, which has then taken my role from not just helping my clients, but also then actually looking at how the business is structured, and what we can do to make sure we're still here in 20 or 30 years time when I'm still building my career. And that's a very different world to just doing the normal financial advisor job. There's different hurdles that you get with that. It certainly challenged me a lot. I'm used to being honest with clients, but then actually when you're talking to other people that run the business with you, you have to be very honest with them about your thoughts and opinions as well, and challenging people a lot more. And that can be difficult at times, but once you get used to it, you realise that actually it's for the best.
Do you think you were, I suppose, you're obviously ready for that next step up to director, but does that then still come with lots of learning as a result of it as well? And so you need to, keep on learning on the job.
Yeah, definitely. Because, being a director of the firm, I get involved a lot more from the regulation side of things. So the FCA, Financial Conduct Authority, who effectively police financial services in the UK, they set out quite strict requirements on what we need to do for different types of business. I didn't necessarily I had to know of them, but I didn't kind of get a say of what the company's view was to adhere to them previously. Whereas now, we'll sit down with our compliance company and they'll say, right, these are the regulations that you've got to be mindful of, and actually now decide as a company, right, this is what we're going to do to make sure we adhere to them and stick within the rules. And yeah, that's a very different world to just talk to people about their money. Surprisingly, it's like all things in life, practice makes perfect. So once you get involved in it, and after a few months of being a director, you realize that actually it's you're kind of learning on the job, but actually it's interesting how quickly you can learn.
No, that's brilliant. And question, what made you want to become a financial advisor?
Well, basically when so I started off at HSBC, started off on the till. Being in that branch, I then got to see other jobs. So people were sort of selling current accounts and personal loans and things like that. I ended up working for a Britannia Building Society, as it was back in the day. And I then got talking to people more over a desk about what we could do. But it wasn't an advising role. It was basically people would come in and say, right, I've got money in an ISA. What's your interest rates? But you couldn't really sort of challenge them to say, well, what do you actually want to achieve from this? What's the end goal? And whether or not an ISA was the best thing for them to do. So being a financial advisor allowed me to then kind of take that next step to actually say, okay, I can tell you the interest rates, but actually, what do you want to achieve? What's the bigger picture of this? And you realize that actually you're helping people more than just giving them the information that they came in with. So yeah, it definitely helped. Being in the branch, seeing what financial advisors were doing and thinking, well, actually, yeah, do you know what? I like what they're doing. I like how they're helping people. That's what I want to do.
That's fantastic. And so we talked previously about what's been some of the highs of your career. Has there been any low points that you've sort of had to pick yourself up, be a bit more resilient and dust yourself off from?
Yeah, there have been. It's not one of the companies I've already mentioned. I worked for a different company when I first started being a financial advisor. And sometimes when you work for big organizations, you have to bear in mind that, you qualify as a financial advisor with this blue-eyed vision of, helping people. You then go and work for a large company, and this isn't all large companies, but they have targets, their businesses, they need to meet turnover targets, things like that. And ultimately it means that you need to sign up a certain amount of money from clients in a month period. You get targets. And sometimes there's one or two particular clients that I sat down in front of, and, you really did have a challenge of saying, what these people want to achieve actually isn't conducive to me hitting my target. And there are occasions where you sort of look at yourself and you have to think, wait a minute, I have to tell these people not to do something, but I'm actually then going to get a call from my boss to say, why haven't you hit your target this month? And they're probably the low points. The great thing I have at Matthew Douglas is that we don't have targets like that. It is all client outcomes that drive what we do. If I don't write any business in a month, my boss isn't going to come knocking on my shed door saying, why haven't you done anything? It's all about looking after your customers. As long as you've done the right thing there, the rest of it will follow. There have been lows, but you learn from them. And I learned from those low points in having awkward conversations with previous companies, and it made me realize that actually I need to be with a firm that focuses on what's right for the customer, and that's thankfully where I am now.
It's good. And so obviously you're in a client-facing role, and you're out and about, you're meeting people. I think that's definitely the sort of similarity that we have between our roles. If anything, that's what I find more frustrating now, when you're not out and about meeting people, or schmoozing, as most of my colleagues like to say. But have you had to ever deal with some disputes? When you are dealing with clients and those sorts of things, how do you overcome that? Because that must be really challenging. Because you want to keep them as a client, but you've got tricky conversations to have, and no doubt, based on the current climate that we're in, there are even more tricky conversations to have moving forwards.
Yeah, absolutely. What I didn't learn at school, and this is no sort of diss to the education system, but the thing I didn't learn at school was how to deal with awkward conversations. And I've thankfully learned that through work, through training, but also through experience. And there's been occasions where I'll sit down with a client, and like some investments have at the moment, they're down from where they were 12 months ago. And you just have to this comes back to the sort of key skill of being honest. You just have to be honest with people. If you turned around and said to someone, your investment's not down, actually the last 2 weeks it's up from where it was. You're just trying to sugarcoat something, and people can tell that. They really can. If you try and cover over these things, it just certainly for me, I haven't got a poker face. My face wouldn't help me in telling it many lies. So definitely it's just about being honest and just talking through what's gone wrong, what the current situation is, and how it affects someone. They'll appreciate that a lot more than if you turn around and sort of fudge it and pretend nothing's wrong, and then 2 or 3 years down the line they say, right, I'm now at this point that I want to retire, so where's my income? And then you say, well no, 3 years ago it all went down the pan and we didn't do anything about it. Sorry about that. I should have told you then. It's best just to front it out and be honest about it. Definitely. Yeah,
I was going to say, and I think sometimes in a lot of organisations, just knowing when to call BS. I think a lot of the time. So similarly, no doubt you're going to need good persuasion skills as well as part of that. How did you develop those and the other skills that you use at work as well?
I definitely think it's through practice. The diploma that you can do in financial advice, it, goes through how to sort of build up a rapport with people, how to ask soft questions and get the soft facts from people, open-ended questioning and all that stuff. So the qualification actually does teach you how to have a conversation with someone. But I definitely think that it is practice makes perfect with these things. Quite a lot of the time, I'll sit down and the client will say, this is what I want to do. And sometimes you have to say, no, that's not the right thing to do. And, I'm sorry, but that's my opinion and I'm not going to budge from it. And you just have to stand your ground, really. You have to be careful about how that comes across. You don't want to come across as cocky. You also don't want to come across as being blasé and thinking, well, you're not doing what I want you to do, so off you go. It's, you have to sort of be able to show that you can empathize with their situation. But just try and reason why what you're doing is the right thing to do, and why they should be doing it. And I think certainly that's a big difference in being an independent advisor, because I'm sitting down trying to do the best thing for a client rather than what's right for hitting a target. And I think that position means that, you can sit down and you can reason what you're doing much more, because when you're trying to do it to hit a target, and someone says, well, I don't think this is right, why should I do it? You're sitting there thinking, well, because you need to hit a target. But you can't say that to someone. So you then start getting into the world of BS, and that's never going to work. People are going to smell it a mile off.
Yeah. Oh, blimey, I've got a small essay to read out now. So do you have any advice, straight source of information for young people who are starting to manage their own money and finances, especially for those that are embarking on uni or a new job stroke apprenticeship? So yeah, what's your advice to students who are, trying to navigate their own money, setting up a bank account, budgeting, those sorts of things?
Yeah, I mean, there are, I can't think of any specific sources off the top of my head. There are a lot of different apps. I think, is it Monzo? I think is one of them.
Yes, yeah.
And so there are a number of different apps out there that you can effectively link to your bank account, and it will tell you what you're spending your money on. And you can then decide, you can analyze yourself whether or not you can think, well, wait a minute, I've had 20 Starbucks this month. That's cost me so many hundreds of pounds probably. Was that the best use of my money? So there are some good apps for things like that. In terms of sort of understanding the sort of principles of investing, then JP Morgan, they have a really good client-friendly guide that you can just Google and download as a PDF. It's the JP Morgan Principles of Successful Long-Term Investing. Just make sure you're on the UK version when you get that. They have a US version. Yeah, that's a very, very good document to go through. It shows you the benefit of investing early to build up wealth in the future. And, that's quite important for when you're thinking about things like retirement, which, okay, probably isn't on your agenda when you're at uni, because you're thinking, how can I save for a house and things like that. But it just helps to kind of show that, don't be too short-termist, in your thinking. Also think about the long-term game that we're all playing here. The guide also is very good at sort of showing how different investments have performed over the past sort of 10 years. So it gives you a breakdown of how equities have performed versus debt versus property, and it just kind of gives you a good bit of information. If you're looking at investing, there's lots of companies out there that you can do it through. Hargreaves Lansdown is quite a popular one for people to go directly to rather than through an advisor like myself. And again, they have quite a few good tools on there to help you to, sort of see what your risk profile is, so what risk you're willing to take on an investment. And they can also sort of signpost you to different investments that might be right for you. But that's there's definitely things out there. Investopedia is actually quite a good one. If you want a jargon buster, go to Investopedia, type in the word that you don't understand, and it will spell it out in plain English.
And I think for me as well, I remember when I was at college, and then I didn't go to university, did my first job after that. I think for me, in terms of budgeting, especially when you're living at home, you don't have expenses like rent, mortgage, water, gas, all that boring adult stuff. For me, it was, okay, what are my outgoings? Make sure they're paid off. Save X amount of your salary, which you can save a lot because obviously you've not got those traditional outgoings. And then whatever's left, that you can spend that, have zero technically at the end of the month, and know that you've already paid off, I don't know, your phone bill or whatever, and you've saved money. And then you feel a little bit less guilty about, I don't know, going down the pub.
Yeah, I mean,
I know for a young person it can be, you know, incredibly daunting, those next steps.
Yeah, I guess my biggest tip, and this is something I still do today with my own finances, is open up 2 bank accounts. So you'll open up a bank account for your salary to go in, or you know, an income to go into. You know, a bank should allow you to open up an identical account alongside that. And effectively what happens is, so for me with my finances, all my direct debits are on account number 2, sort of over here, but my income comes in here. And what I do, once my income comes in, I put a certain amount into this, my bills are paid for. So whatever's left in the first account is for me. I can save it, I can jump onto Amazon and buy a load of rubbish. It doesn't matter. But I know that once that first account is gone, I've still got a bit of money in the second account. That's paying my mortgage, the council tax, utilities, and that's all taken care of. And it's a really easy way of splitting things out, because direct debits come at different times of the month. So it's easy to get one and then realize, oh, wait a minute, I'm overdrawn because I forgot that my internet was coming out.
That was a very adult conversation, wasn't it? And also, just on Monzo, I've got a Monzo account. I tend to only use it on holidays, whenever, you know, back in the day when you could go on those. And then, because it breaks down where you're spending stuff. You know, if you go into like entertainment or pubs or whatever, then it just got embarrassing. So I thought, no, I'll just stick with Barclays. Other banks are available. But coming back to some of the questions, so is it worth taking the AAT course at college?
Yeah, so the AAT course is specifically for accounting. What I do as a financial advisor is slightly different. But certainly, you know, something like an AAT course is a good place to go, because even if you wanted to then get into being a financial advisor, it's going to teach you a lot of stuff that's going to be very useful for being a financial advisor. Things like, you know, balance sheets of companies, things like that. You know, it will give you a good understanding of tax, which, you know, you need to know also as being a financial advisor. So the AAT course in college isn't going to be a terrible place to start. It's going to be a good foundation, and you can then decide once you've done that whether or not you want to carry on down the accountancy route or whether or not you want to go down the other route of financial advice. It would certainly give you a good foundation to start from.
Fantastic, thanks for that. Just a couple more questions just before we close. So very briefly, so you are an enterprise advisor, so you support students in a variety of schools in Ipswich. Why do you think it's important that young people volunteer, and do you think it's worthwhile they put that on their CV, because obviously they may be lacking sort of formal job experience?
Yeah, definitely. I think if you're volunteering, you're picking up other skills, and they might not be skills that immediately you appreciate the value of, but an employer definitely will in the future. The thing that you find, you know, certainly within financial services, is it is an aging demographic. You know, you get, it's male orientated, it tends to be white males, and, you know, I think the average age of financial advisor is late 50s and the, you know, early 60s. There's a massive gap in the financial services area for young advisors to come in, and that's a great opportunity if you're young, because, you know, you can get into that. What you're going to need, the skills that you're going to need in terms of having confidence, empathy, you know, honesty, stuff like that, you'll pick those up through volunteering. And so it's a great way to sort of get those skills through practice, rather than just reading a book about, well, how do I be confident? Because, you know, that's not going to teach you how to be confident. Being in the real world in front of a, you know, in front of a class of 30 kids, that's going to teach you how to be confident. The other thing though is that it's, you know, it's important also from a, you know, if I go and effectively talk to some young people in the school, I grew up in a different decade to what they're growing up in now, and so having younger people as volunteers is really important, because, you know, you can relate to what, you know, what young people are struggling with at the moment. You know, they're going to relate to you more than they are a 60-year-old man or woman. So you have an ability to sort of get across important information to them, and they might trust you more because they'll say, wait a minute, this person's living in the world that I'm living in. So actually, yeah, I can trust them, because, you know, when I lived with my parents, they could tell me till the cows come home, you know, to eat my greens and all this stuff. But if there was you know, if there was a young football player or basketball player saying, hey, you should eat your greens because of X, Y, and Z, I'd probably trust them more than my parents.
Yeah, it's a relatable role model as well,
Yeah.
I think. But I'm going to go on to just another question. I think we might extend this a little bit further. So where's the best place to take your work experience in this field?
Well, I don't know really. I mean, there's so many different places you could do work experience. So if you think the way that financial services is set up is that you'll have financial advisors as kind of like the first point of contact with a client. We then effectively take clients' money and we might then go and invest it into funds. These investment funds are run by companies called asset managers, and so you get companies like Schroders, JP Morgan, companies like that, and generally they're based in London. Whether or not you get your work experience through a local financial advisor or you go to a bigger firm, say in a city, either way, you're going to learn a lot of the same skills. You're going to see a lot of the same stuff in terms of understanding how markets go up and down and how you talk to people and things like that. So I'd probably say it's just, it depends on really where your location is. It's probably easier to do work experience close to where you live, if possible. And then once you start off down one place for a bit of work experience, you can then decide, well, actually, was that right for me? Shall I go somewhere else? Because there's plenty of other places, plenty of choices in financial services to do work experience.
And I think just to add on to that as well, you know, employers at the moment are more than willing to support with work experience and also meaningful work experience. So I think, you know, if there are, you know, you almost need to sort of draw up a hit list of local organizations that you think I'd like to see myself working there. Contact them, you know, just drop them an email. A lot. I know definitely in Norfolk and Suffolk, we're more than willing and happy to support young people and make sure that, you know, you've got new talent coming into the business as well. Right. Yeah. I'm going to ask you one last question for like Paxman. So there's going to be a lot of students out there who are, you know, facing a lot of challenges in terms of what their next pathway is going to be. And it's a stressful time anyway, thinking about what college, what university that you want to go to, or indeed what apprenticeship or going into a job after is like. What's your advice to them? You know, what would you say to your 16 or 18-year-old self about that next pathway? What's your advice?
I mean, when I look back at when I was sort of 17, 18 and, you know, wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I didn't know what I wanted to study at uni because I wasn't sure what career I then wanted to achieve at the other side of that. If you want to go to uni, all I'd say is study something that you enjoy. At least that way you're going to spend, you know, 3, maybe 4 years of your life and a fair bit of money. You're going to spend it on something that you are actually interested in. It should make it easier for you to actually study and understand it. And as long as you've studied something that you're interested in, then it should, by nature, lead you into an occupation which is based on something that you enjoy. Because, you know, they're going to look at your degree and say, right, oh yeah, that's in the field that we deal with, have a job with us. So it would work out for itself. You can certainly get too caught up, as I did, in thinking, oh my God, I don't know what I should do. If I do the wrong course, I'm not actually going to end up in the right job. Just do something that you enjoy, because then it is naturally going to lead you down the right route. If you don't go to uni, don't worry about it. If, you know, I didn't go to uni. I just did a bit of work. It was meant to be a gap year, and it's ended up being a gap year for over 18 years in financial services. But within that industry, there's plenty of qualifications that you can do on the job. So if you don't go to uni and there's a certain job or a company that you think, yeah, I'd like to work for them, go and work for them. You might only do it for a year, and at the end of that think, actually, no, I need to go to uni. But if you don't, within that company, they're probably going to have a way of being able to invest into you and get you qualifications, because, you know, they're going to want you there for the long term so that you can be an asset to them as a business anyway.
Definitely. Brilliant. Well, look, thank you so much for answering all of my questions, all of the questions that people are posting in as well. As always, it's absolute pleasure to sit down with you, learn a little bit more about financial sector, have a chat, hear about your own experience. A lot of that was definitely news to me. But honestly, Anthony, it's been a pleasure. So thank you so much for joining us on Careers and Coffee.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Cheers. Okay, folks, that's Anthony West from Matthew Douglas talking to us a little bit more about the financial sector, his role, some of the skills he thinks young people need for the world of work, and also summarising about the advice he would give to his 16 or 18-year-old self about the next steps and future pathways as well. So thank you so much for joining. We're back on Tuesday. We'll be speaking to James Potter. James is the MD of Superstructures Engineering. Really fantastic guy, great advocate for the construction sector, making sure more young people are going into it as well. So tune in next Tuesday, James Potter, Superstructures Engineering, 12:30 here on our New Anglia LEP YouTube channel. Thanks.